Kerala is a world-class state, so please don't confuse Kerala with anywhere in India. This is unique. So globalizing Indian thought did not mean globalizing religion, globalizing fundamentalism. Why India is divided by the only three names? Krishna, Shiva and Ram. So I asked this question to my faculty: if Sachin Tendulkar was asked to choose between marriage and cricket, would he still be Sachin Tendulkar? So if you have to choose somebody between Kerala and another state, and if the equation was equal in terms of skill levels, we'll probably bet on the guy from this state because of the ethical standards. So what can artificial intelligence not do? You think they can do everything. What they cannot do, they don't have a sense of life. India never believed in knowledge systems. India believed in knowing. You see, our first language, our orientation to the world is musical. Your heart beats in a rhythmic way. Your DNA is a dance of molecules that is almost like a musical rendering. So your entirety of before any language emerged, music emerged. Kerala is a world-class state. It is not a... So when somebody who is representing the government and India Student High Commission, he was talking about the difference between rich Delhi schools, they have money, and down south education is in bad shape. I said, sorry, don't think of Kerala as down south. Kerala is up north of Europe. It is equivalent to Europe in the way people behave, in the way our hospitals work, in the way people's minds are, in the way our per capita is. So please don't confuse Kerala with anywhere in India. This is unique. Why is it unique? Because of the people. Why people? Because these are the same people who, in a landmass which is so dense, which is so competitive, have something very deeply shared about them. So they come together. There's a convergence in Kerala is unthinkable. Across the political spectrum, you see a Shashi Tharoor, you see the governor of Goa, another political party, and you see Pradeep Kumar or whoever from they're sitting on stage and felicitating somebody with general camaraderie. I don't see this. It is a polarized political space. Here, even in the political space, there is room for convergence. This is Kerala's biggest USP. The fact that IIM Kozhikode today is known in the world is because convergence of 103 faculty from different parts of the world, students might, and all our units coming together in pursuit of something extraordinary. So this comes from the soil. This comes from the process. See, the people who work in our campuses, our chechis who work in terms of, I put the flower arrangements. So there are two women who work, who create the urli in front of my office. Every day there's a new design. Every 365 days a year. Unfailingly, there's no repetition. So I said, I've never seen this anywhere. Diligently, these two women will come and they'll pick up flowers, not from the tree, but the ones who have fallen down, and they will create something new every day. So I said we should decorate should have big cutouts of those arrangements across the campus with their names specifically, and the name of the flowers, how they do it. And so we started plastering our walls with their work. So the dignity of labor, this is something we learned in Kerala. You don't get to see this. People are proud of what they do, and they see themselves as equal to you. Of course, there's a differential relationship. But that is something unique. I have not seen this in many parts of India. We have imbibed all those values in our institutional space. We have kept it squeaky clean, like most of Kerala is. This state can be a draw for the world as an exception to average India, provided you can assimilate some of these infrastructural and other changes. Assimilation is important. There has to be food courts that cater to other kinds of food. You see, you cannot be so conservative that you don't get anything except local food. So those are little pockets where you have to invite people in. a little bit of that. IIM Kozhikode has started to do that complementarity to what we see. But the best of Kerala is just what I told you. People here are incredible, but like coconut trees, they're constantly growing in isolation. If you just get them together, it will be a world-class institution like we have shown possible.
Sir, if you consider the quality of the students coming out of the management schools, so how we are going to analyze the performance of students from Kerala compared to the global level?
See, we get roughly 10% of students from Kerala. And I can tell you in terms of basic global citizenship values, this state is far ahead of anything in the country. You don't see citizenship behavior of the kind that you see here. I worked in north, south, east, west of India. I haven't seen, at least my own, the reason every book of mine in English is translated in Malayalam is because I know there will be as many readers from Malayalam. And I travel by a train. I used to do a column for Mathrubhumi, and I travel by a train. People would stop because they read my column and take a photograph. There will be a restaurant guy. See, there's a person who was traveling through the airport, and he said, I was staying in this Abad hotel, and the cleaning boy comes, and I had carrying an envelope which had some books, and in that envelope was made of a newspaper where my columns was there. So he looked at my picture in that little envelope. I said, I know this. So he's in IIM, he writes. So my column was for the local. So they understood that, then they reading a newspaper. These are some of the aspects of life that students of Kerala come with, that kind. And so the complaint I hear that they often don't get people who come from here, they don't meet other communities as freely as the one Malayali who would have gone out. Then it is a different Malayali altogether. So I'm seeing when people from Kerala go and export their values outside, they become world class. See, in Calcutta, I used to have the best people were from the state in terms of due diligence, reliability. So this is our students, it is not just about mental capability. It's not just about numerical. It is also about how responsive you are, how responsible you are. These are values that I think the state has distinguished itself, and we see this as very distinct. So the reliability issue. So if you have to choose somebody between Kerala and another state, and if the equation was equal in terms of skill levels, we'll probably bet on the guy from this state because of the ethical standards. That would be the differentiator.
So you're saying the work culture, what about the work culture over here?
Culture is a dynamic thing. Same Malayali here would be one kind, same Malayali here US would be second kind. In Bengal would be third kind. In Bengal he will take on the Bengalis' bad habits. In Delhi he will be vociferous for his rights. In US he will be absolutely hardworking, diligent. So Shyamulam, you will get lots of variations. You get Gita Gopinath from Harvard. You will also get, I don't want to mention those names. Will create problems. And so the thing I'm trying making is this, that culture is a dynamic process. Culture is something that shifts, like switchboard in electricity. The switchboard is different. But the essential, quintessential stuff that you bring from your own heritage is that, you must preserve nature. That's another dimension of Kerala's thing, that, the commitment to nature. And that is also very important. I think going forward, some of the citizenship values are very deeply held and imbibed here. And we respect that. So I used to know, so you're from Kerala, so you must be good, you must be, you'll not spit on the train. So you make some assumptions immediately. I mean, those assumptions may not be valid, but you make assumptions based on the dominant impressions that you get from meeting multiple people from the same culture, and then forming an impression about them as to this is what Kerala is all about. I hope I made myself clear. So our students from Kerala do well. I have not kept any database because we don't segregate students based. Once they get admitted, men, women, caste, gender, everything is equal. We see them as IIM graduates. We had this ratio for 50 years of IIM's existence that there are 8 to 10% women in a class size of, let's say, 180, 200. IIM Ahmedabad, Bangalore, Calcutta could master only up to 10% women in 50 years of existence. So I looked at the data. Then I realized in the CAT exam, women don't even take the exam. They can only make it if they take it. I asked, why would they not take it? Then the questions were that these girls were much better than boys in school, 10th and 12th class. After that, the playfield became uneven because boys, in a middle class family, the coaching money went to the boys to crack the exams. The girls were primed for marriage. So I asked this question to my faculty: if Sachin Tendulkar was asked to choose between marriage and cricket, would he still be Sachin Tendulkar? And so the answer to that was obvious. And so we said that we are going to admit the 10th scores and 12th scores as a criteria for selection, admission, and then girls got equal opportunity, and they did much better than expected in the interview and in the summer placements. They outdid the boys. Corporates are looking for this. The timing was right. So IIM Kozhikode was the first time in 2013 to get 52%, 53% women on the board, and it changed the dynamics across the narrative across the management world, not just IIMs, ISB, corporates started thinking more women managers at the entry level, more board members at the corporate level. So we played a significant role here in gender diversity. Then we looked at other forms of diversity. The first D was digitization, second D was diversification. I launched 4 new programs in 2020. MBA in Liberal Studies, MBA in Finance, PhD for practicing professionals, 1-year MBA program in business leadership. These 4 new programs are launched all together in 1 year. It is unthinkable in the IIM system. We are very conservative. Like you are launching 4 versions of Indian Express in the same year. It was thought of as impossible, but I realized that if you don't do it in one go, each one will feed on the other. It's not as though we are doing 4 things. We are only doing one thing, which is we are diversifying. And diversification plays on each other. See, our innovation quotient went up. We realized innovation was a function of diversity. So teachers started teaching differently. Pedagogy was different. The boys were dressed better. They didn't utter expletives in front of girls. So and our bathrooms had to be redone. And so we recognized that there are lots. And then somebody said there must be, there's dispensers, this sanitary pads in every. So our sensitivity levels went up. It became. So we reached global standards in many things because, So this diversity was not just gender diversity. It was diversity in number of courses, diversity in terms of... IIM Kozhikode went out and became the first IIM to embrace global accreditation. Because we were a government-controlled, national, world famous in India kind of institutions. But we said, well, you can't be world famous in India. You have to go out there. So we were the first IIM. Before Ahmedabad, Bangalore, Calcutta even thought about it, to get AMBA. AMBA is a London-based accrediting body that accredits roughly 250 odd global institutions. After AMBA, we got EQUIS. EQUIS is the toughest accreditation. This is based out of Brussels. We have what you call a triple crown, we got double crown. And so the other IIMs had to, we changed the playfield every time. So diversification meant not just diversification for the sake of diversification, but essentially introducing the component of distinct learning styles, pedagogical methods. Women would learn slightly differently from men, and it suited us a lot because India was moving towards innovation in a big way. We were looking at the innovation economy. The third shift that happened was what you call disruption. We did what IIMs never thought we'd do. We adopted a mission called globalizing Indian thought. What we were doing, we were Indianizing Harvard and MIT. Right? I said, no, we can't become so my staircase leading to the main building was called Harvard Steps by my predecessor. He was obviously US educated, IIM Ahmedabad. I said, no, it will be called Arjuna Path. I said, Alexander is known all over the world. Arjuna has equal capability, but he's not known. Why is he not known? Because he never had the courage to talk about our own icons. So globalizing Indian thought did not mean globalizing religion, globalizing fundamentalism. We globalize Indian thought in terms of how do we look at the best and the next practices of India that can be benchmarked in the global, that can be equivalent or better than global standards.
You said destroy or undo. If you were to undo, can you name 5 things which you would want to undo going forward?
5 things would be too many to undo at one go, but I can imagine that one thing I would immediately want to undo is a mindset that said that we don't have enough. That's a primary. The sense of scarcity. People say, what is the funding for education? Immediately the question is funding. But do you see that even if there is funding, there is no access to that funding? There are reforms that are needed in the structure where funding does not percolate. You don't invest in focused technological intervention. You're spreading it all over. There is a system that so I need X amount of money for technological upgradation of Indian institutions. I give that money on a blanket basis, not looking at where is the greatest leverage for that kind of thing. So not enough research. So Indian mind has to be innately inquisitive. This is what I'm going to undo in school system. We must replace these fossilized institutions that have archaic systems of answers, not questions. We are all teachers are ready with answers. Your questions must be answered in a particular way, otherwise you don't get marks. And so the point is that this questioning of assumptions, which a new generation of India is ready to, these assumptions will have to be made part of. See, our institutions have to be laboratories of learning, not learned people. And so this learning will have to come in the form of constant challenging, changing assumptions. This will be things I will undo in the decision space. You replace your answers with more and more questions. Don't take anything for granted in terms of how this newspaper will be run, how this will be published. We did it like this throughout. IIMs were run like that. I was often hearing, IIMs don't do this, IIMs don't do that. IIMs don't tamper with meritocracy. CAT exam is sacrosanct. Today you see, top IIMs don't use more than 50% of the CAT scores. Because there's a misleading certainty about a score based on a one-time exam in assessing a person's capability. I was saying that for a long time. So for God's sake, the civil services exam. They're not talking about. I was sitting in an interview in civil services. The standard question from the chairman in UPSC board. I don't know if this should go on record, but nevertheless, tell me about corruption. And immediately the answer comes from the candidates, an absolutely parroted answer. Corruption is of 2 kinds. What are the 2 kinds? Need-based and greed-based. So it went on, 4 candidates saying the same thing because some study circles, some coaching center taught them. So I asked this guy, I said, tell me which one will you choose? He didn't even think. He said, I will never go for greed-based corruption. I said, it will always be need-based? He said, yes. So there is no reflection. So there is no reflection, you see what I'm saying? And so the point is that these monoliths, IITs, IIMs, IIS, we have to rethink what is going to be a successful bureaucrat, who's going to be a successful manager. We are losing our engineering talent. You see, most of them are going to the IT space, and because the quality of engineering in India is suffering. Nobody is thinking of those corrections. So how do you make engineering education again a matter of pride? It was a matter of pride. In my growing up years, it could be either engineer, doctor, or nobody. You have now replaced engineering with liberal studies and all of that. But you still need engineers, right? And quality engineers. You can't neglect one field. You can't push all engineers to do software development. And there's a huge disproportionate income differential determined by the market, of course. So Thapar University is an engineering college in north of India, saying that we are not getting students in any other discipline. Everybody wants to do computer science and they want a shortcut to a software job, which is high paying. Look how the market has completely skewed the education process. So we must make those corrections, we must challenge those assumptions. And then there has to be policy shifts that say, okay, we must make teaching jobs respectable. When these teachers from the state came to our campus, they were treated on par with IS officers and army personnel. He said, never in our life did we see that we were given equal treatment. You don't respect a teacher. And so teaching...
Delhi.
Not just Delhi, there are other people who come here and say, no, we treat them as equals. Doesn't matter who's on campus. Mr. Uman Chandi came. I said, you cannot come with your secretary. You can come with your police guys. You will have come here as students. And you can't use your smartphones while your class is on. You'll be fined if you do that. I fined the then finance minister. Who just passed away, you know his name. He was the finance minister in Chandigarh government. Money.
Okay, money. We find it.
Yeah, $1,000. And the thing is that we said this, and this is important for us as custodians of value. We must know what we stand for. And so this is something I learned. It's not something that, over the years I've seen great teachers, how they behaved. I still remember one of my mentors, the Deputy Prime Minister of India, was in Calcutta. And he was being shortlisted for Padma, and so some businessman came and said to him, sir, the Deputy PM is here, he wants to have I don't want to mention the name of the PM. So if you just meet him once, it will be good, courtesy call. He said, yes, of course, meeting the Deputy PM is a privilege, I would love to meet him. When is the meeting scheduled? He said, now he's going to catch the flight to Delhi, so if you can go there in next 5-10 minutes, you can. He said, sorry, I can't, I have a class scheduled. How can I cancel the class and meet him? If he can wait or if he can come back again, I'll meet him, but class is important. He didn't get the Padma Award, but he left an impression on us. And he said, this is what mattered in life. And so if you just did, this is Ram Rajya for me, you just have to do your own work. Gandhi's definition of Ram Rajya was that everybody does his own work, Swadharma, with diligence. It's not about some utopia that is going to emerge from heavens. It's our own work. And I want to make this very clear, that we believe in the sweat of our brow, in the quality of excellence. IIMs are built on one theme alone, excellence. See, it's an obscure thing that happened. Somebody from the Prime Minister's office in India recommended my name I was in Singapore. And so I had no clue that you called me for an interview. I said, would you pay the airfare? Yeah. Where is the city? Kozhikode. I said, where is Kozhikode? Because we are familiar with Calicut. And so this is where Kozhikode is. Okay. And so my daughter checked out the internet. The second, the cleanest city, livable city in the world. So we came with a huge kind of anticipation. I came for an interview. And who was interviewing me? E. Sridhar of Metro Rail, Metro Man of India. I did not know who he was. Honestly, I never saw his picture. So he asked me the first question, what if one were to argue that you're too young to be given the leadership of an IIM? I was in my early 40s, dean of a school in Singapore. I said, come on, you cannot give me leadership. You can give me a position. Leadership has to be earned. So what is your vision for IIM Kozhikode? I said, honestly, I don't have a vision. All I know is that the guest house you put me in, the door creaks, the sofa set has springs coming out, and the tea maker doesn't heat up water. If I were to come, things will start working. And then I got the job. I was wondering whether I should relocate, to huge cost to my family. We relocated. And Sridharanji came back after 4 years to see what was happening. He was addressing my students. So he said that I saw your director picking up chewing gum on the road leading to the director's office. That is not his job, but if he's doing it, it explains to me why the campus is so clean in the middle of monsoon. So the fact was that since I had this exposure to both US and Singapore, I knew how Singapore had carved out its own identity not by imitating US, but by assimilating best standards of the world. They went into best practice. I said India has to go a step forward. India is not Singapore. It's not a country that will converge because everybody has different opinions. So I said we have to go to the next practice, not the best practice. What is the next practice? Only we will do that. Nobody else has done it. They will imitate us. So for me it was about, what next? Next curve will be more women management. I was seeing those trends in corporate conversation. I was talking to Citibank, P&G. They said, more women in the managerial cadre. Corporates are looking for, because women have become decision makers. They have disposable income. So where are they going to come from? IIMs, don't have enough women. So we spotted those trends. And we said, okay, what is the next practice? Digitization was one, diversification was another. Then we said, all of a sudden we said, we must have people with a non-engineering liberal background. The first MBA in liberal studies, it was an experiment. Faculty were worried we may not be able to place people. English literature, history, doing an MBA, where will they be placed? We have an MBA in finance, we have an MBA in liberal studies. Banks are recruiting from LSM, liberal studies, not from finance. We asked them why. He said finance they can learn, but they have to have a mind that is open. And we need those kind of people. So we created a need. That was the next practice. It was never there. Nobody thought of liberal studies MBA. We thought of that. And the thought also came from conversations, from divergence of people. The more diversity, you have weird kind of thoughts. So we have what you call in our campus living rights, not human rights. Because we know living rights will be the next step. COVID is going to tell us that human-centered world doesn't work. We have to think like an insect, we have to think like a dog, we have to think like a cat. So we have a cat shelter, we have a dog shelter. No snake is killed on our campus. No tree is cut without my explicit permission. So cut one tree, it requires 3 levels of permission. I've gone to the board, I said no more construction, no more parking places, we don't want to pollute. So we have a beautiful piece of green space which is where we want to showcase. We have a climate lab center where one of my faculty, Deepak Dayanidhi, is looking at local understanding of climate change issues. And so very progressive things going forward. Much before NEP came into being, we started multidisciplinarity. We anticipated this is about to come, and it came as a formal thing. So whatever we did became formalized later.
It's you said that you're coming up with different practices. Now this is the time for AI, artificial intelligence. So how we are going to assimilate that into your programs, the MBA management programs?
See, you have to understand the distinction between AI and IA. AI is artificial intelligence. IA is intelligence augmented. Artificial intelligence is nothing but natural intelligence that is augmented by devices that we sometimes don't even understand. Right? So the augmentation process is mistaken as creative process. Technology creates nothing. Technology merely simplifies or amplifies human creativity, ingenuity. We've forgotten that. So what can artificial intelligence not do? You think they can do everything. What they cannot do, they don't have a sense of life. So they cannot say that my next generation will suffer if I do this. They won't have the kind of sense of humor or sense of context that we will have. So what they cannot do will be the province of education, province of professionalism. So we said, what AI cannot do is what IA will not allow it to do. There are things that culturally we will never allow AI to enter. Right? You may have dating games and all of that, but before you decide whom you marry, you will not depend entirely on artificial intelligence. See, the kind of company you will join, you will not depend entirely on artificial intelligence. The kind of place you live will not depend entirely on it. So there will be a human element in each of these decision-making process. We said, so can we augment our non-AI domain? Can we enhance the domain of IA? So we have many programs that are now running on what you call hybrid mode. What is hybrid? Part of it is digitized and some of it is FaceTime. And the FaceTime is the most beautiful experience that people have. For instance, I have created a classroom called Gurukul. That's where you should have your next editorial conference. You should see this is a classroom that can sit about 50 people. It has got grass underneath. It has got vertical gardens. It has got a huge ceiling with light coming in. And it has got a sitting arrangement in such a way that you sit down, so you squat, and you are in the eye line of everybody. Teacher taught everybody. And that's the most visited classroom. That can be augmented artificially by just plugging in. So this classroom can be transported somewhere else. You have some of the modern devices, but the atmosphere is one of camaraderie, in a bit of a informality that makes learning so much more joyful. So the structure of a typical Western classroom with chairs and tables, stiff, with a square table like that, where circularity is missing. So you can see our classrooms are round in structure, where people share as an equal, because somebody who says the heads of the table is meant to feel very important all of a sudden. In a round place format, that sense is not there. So you can see many Japanese conferences happen on round table format because they believe in shared decision making. In management, if you don't perform, you face the music. So you might know, you might know what music means, right? And so you see our first language, our orientation to the world is musical. Your heart beats in a rhythmic way. Your DNA is a dance of molecules that is almost like a musical rendering. So your entirety of before any language emerged, music emerged. People understood music before Song of the Sea, the wind blowing through leaves, and so all of these. And it is part of our inheritance as human beings that we should be. So if you go to my campus, you'll see in the corridors is pipe music. You hear the music as you walk along. It settles my people very quickly. It settles a classroom. All my classrooms, even when I used to teach in IIM-Calcutta and Lucknow, used to begin with instrumental music. Then I used to invite students to play, if they could play an instrument. And immediately the class would wake up to another dimension of attention, which is very, very, for me, very important. Now, these are experiments that will happen very soon. But I started it 30 years back. People are catching up that hospitals are now using music. A lot of hotels, of course, do. Restaurants do. So why not offices? What prevents offices? In Japan, I was visiting Suzuki's plant in Hamamatsu, and all of a sudden, 11 o'clock, there's music going on. People, bosses, general managers coming out and doing exercises to the rhythm of. They come in 15 minutes and they go back to their office work again. So very interesting, and it energizes the whole group. And why not? Why would you not experiment? India has music for every season, every part of the day. No other civilization has music for every hour of the day, every mood, every mode. And if you can't exploit that richness in a learning space, where else can you do it? So we went ahead of the curve a little bit, but I think the world will catch up. If it is genuinely, if it is authentic, they will catch up.
We are at a time when the government is now opening up the foreign education, allowing foreign universities to set up campuses here. So, and now you are here. So, do you see competition coming up, or how do you look at the entire?
Yeah, you see, competition threatens those who are not competent. It doesn't threaten competent people. They welcome competition. Neeraj Chopra will welcome another javelin thrower, like you saw in Asian Games, because he knows who he is. He knows that he will not be at the top forever. That there must be a generation of new leaders who would come up. Competition will only enhance the quality of but competition not for everything. Competition only for the right kind of things. You don't compete to outwit each other. The education, unfortunately, competition has become a zero-sum game in India. Here, competition is about developing competence. So if Indian institutions are not doing well, and a foreign service player who is doing better than us, it should challenge us into becoming better in that domain. But for any school to come and compete with our kind of institutions will take, because IIM is a legacy institution, 50 years. Who can come and, if 20 IIMs come together, we are the biggest management school in the world by size, by performance. If Harvard were to take students on affirmative action basis, if Harvard were to teach courses in multilingual Indian languages, not just English, Harvard will not remain Harvard. They'll be destroyed. So why will they want to come here at such a cost to themselves? We are not unnecessarily worried. What we do think, however, I was with the Australian High Commissioner, invited me for dinner. So he asked about what is it that Australians should remember when they come to India, collaborating in higher education. I said, one thing you should learn is to respect India for what it is. Don't come here as a big brother. If you come here as a big brother, we will do to Australian education what Indian cricket has done to Australian cricket. We'll learn from you and we'll beat you hollow in your own game. We can survive at very low cost environments. We can provide the best of intense kind of thing. So the point is this, that India welcomes good educational practices from anywhere in the world. It should not disturb our equanimity. We got to learn. We are a nation of learners. So we will learn from Australia how to bowl quickly. We had spinners. And our fast bowlers are better than Australian fast bowlers today. They set up our pace academy. And so the point I'm trying to make is this, that this country is not a country that has closed its doors to, looking at our great thinkers, great masters. They've always said you must keep your mind and your doors open, but don't be swept off your feet by a flimsy wind from somewhere. Gandhi's famous quote, I refuse to be swept off my feet because I'm rooted in values that are global, that are universal in nature. So globalizing Indian thought, which was the same, look at our global impact of ideas, of thoughts, of values. And so those values will not change. What will change is the operationalization of them. Better quality. Why would IIM come? If you don't have a good building, if you don't have good infrastructure, you will not be able to attract global talent. People look at buildings, they look at swimming pool. If you look at the advertisement of Delhi schools, almost look like tourist promotion brochures. Horse riding, swimming pool. What has that got to do with education? But surely they have something. Otherwise, why would they advertise? People's perceptions are generated based on So you live in a world of perception, and Indian education must be packaged for global. Our education is easily going to be aspirational for Africa, for most of Asia, for Eastern Europe. They are not going to get this kind of quality of education at the price point of Cambridge, Oxford, MIT, Harvard. Why we have not been able to create an aspiration for them? Primarily because it was locked into us. It's self-belief that we don't need anything, we have everything, we are Vishwaguru without doing anything. You can't be Vishwaguru without reaching out to the Vishwa. You can't be sitting here and say, I am Vishwaguru. You have to go out there and test your mettle. So Nalanda, Takshashila, they tested their mettle. People came there, they went out, we went out. And so you can't sit here and take a position and say, I'm the greatest. You have to go there and prove. And so that's how Indian education is poised. IIT has gone to now Africa. IIM is poised to go to Middle East. And so we are slowly, our foot, and we must go out there on our own terms. So the conversation with the Australian High Commissioner was not misplaced. He says, and then he asked me a question, the Commissioner, that how can you globalize the Indian thought? Thought is not Indian, it is, I said, no, thought has a context. No thought comes without a context. He said, give me an example. I said that there was an agriculture specialist from Australia. He said, look, your agriculture is about pest control. Our agricultural practices in the past were about keeping aside a part of the crop for pests. so that pests would not be treated as pests, they would be treated as part of our ecology. Now if you destroy those pests, you destroy the ecological balance. You're learning in the long haul that we have destroyed. Climate change is a result of values. It's not about knowledge, it's about the values that drove that knowledge. And those values are going to be very, very critical going forward. And I think India is a custodian of some perennial values, and we cannot afford to compromise on that. The sheer intensity of aspiration and the lack of the necessary institutional spaces to fund those aspirations, to be able to house those aspirations. We are talking about 300,000 people taking the CAT exam. 20 IIMs, how many can we take? 1:800. Look at the rejection ratio of institutions of excellence. Where will the rest go? Where will the rest go? They think IIM or nothing, IIT or nothing, but something, Australia job, so it gives you a little facelift. You see, there is the one problem is that India has developed what is called a pecking order of institutions, without which life is meaningless. A pecking order of marks and remarks, without which life is meaningless. The problem is there are multimodal ways of being educated, of learning. You may not ever go to school, yet you may be very deeply educated. You may be entrepreneurial, but you may not be qualified in a university sense. So the societal forces had created, corresponding to the colonial structure, a mindset that says you can be your calling in life is determined by the job and the institution that you get associated with, the language you speak. So English language becomes the first differentiator. If you don't speak English, you can't get into good schools, right? So language creates a cognitive barrier for entry into elite spaces. So therefore, a new orientation to people with different ability to, different linguistic skills, still have the ability. If I test Sachin Tendulkar for English language capability, I won't be testing his cricketing acumen. And that is what Kapil Dev, he was in one campus in IIM Lucknow, and he was asked this question. Kapil was asked this question by one of my students, that you come for doing cricket commentary, but your commentary is not very convincing, as your gamesmanship is. So why do you at all do commentary in English? He said, luckily we don't play cricket with English. We play cricket with bat and ball. So our entry barriers for excellence has been, too many. And this, like I'll tell you what, I had this individual you all know, Meghnad Desai, economist. He said, I wouldn't get admission to any good Indian schools. When I went to England, I saw it was so easy to get admission. To be a doctor, it was easy. I mean, you don't have to be standing in a queue behind 300,000 people to be a doctor. You could just study medicine if you wanted to. So that access to opportunities was denied for a long time. And one must be very fair to... I went to a vernacular school to start with. Trust me, this was unbelievable. Only luck got me in. So I was given an admission test, because my father wanted me in that school after my brother went there. So admission test, I failed 100 of the 100 spellings. With brother Murphy from Australia, I couldn't understand Australian English, and in any case, I did not understand English too well. So my answer sheet was put on the notice board, and the headmaster said, your son, to my father, he said, your son cannot make it next year, he should come for English language. So my father said, give him another chance. After a month or so, I'll bring him back. And so what happened is I was put to a coaching school. And the person who was coaching happened to be the husband of the English teacher of St. Xavier's School, where I was seeking admission. And the deal was that he will pass on the question paper before the exam, as it is shortcuts. But he had also self-respect. He was not an ordinary coach. So he said, look, I'll also take a test. If you're absolutely raw, I can't do much because I don't want to embarrass my own reputation is at stake. So he gave another test. The test was verbal. Can you spell circus? And he asked a lot of other students, one after the other they failed. And when it came to me, I said, circus was C-I-R-C-U-S. He said, look, he comes from a 1 rupee 75 paisa school. He can spell circus. You can't. You guys are from 45 rupees school. And he'll go very far. That's what he said. And so stuck in my head. I was plain lucky. It's not that I was more intelligent. Gemini circuit had come to town, and inside the mouth of hippopotamus, there was this word circus, and I had a very good visual memory, and so I could simply reproduce the spelling. It was vibrant in my imagination. So I said no, but he said he'll go very far. So I started reading. So 17 books in the English language today, translated in multiple international languages, is a result of that, constant need to catch up with the English language. Today, even if I do Wordle at night, New York Times, I'm improving my English on an everyday basis for the last 30 years. So you can imagine, I used to not eat breakfast until I wrote 250 words. And so this comes as an unlocked aspiration. Somebody says he'll go far, but going far is hard work from where you started, the vernacular school to here. But a lot of Indians aspire, you can make an impact out of aspiration, but also out of desperation. In my case, it was both. So desperation to catch up with. We used to see St. Xavier's guys going in a blue bus reading Tintin, and I couldn't do any of that. So that was aspiration, and you wanted to be like them, stuff like that. But India, I think, has now a lot of opportunities for people from all sections. India of tomorrow will be vastly different from India of today. So there is no point assuming that India will remain the same. It is going to get more affluent, people will get more, sort of our airports, roads, you can see, nobody can believe India is going so quickly. This is I was with just day before yesterday, I spent some time with the current Danish ambassador. This is his 11th year in India. So I said, what changes have you seen? He said, the first change I've seen is that as a result of whatever is happening, the self-confidence of the average Indian is infinitely more. Sometimes it is too arrogant, but it is infinitely more. Number one. Number two, because of digitization, in everyday life, corruption has come back, because people can now check what they are entitled to much better. And the third thing he said, and this was something that puzzled me a little bit, so I'm trying to recall what he said. He said, look, because of the scale that India has, anything that India does will have global implications. So if Indian train is going green, Indian trains are going green, it will have an impact on the railway services all over the world. Because everybody want to know how did you do it. Most people who come to India are not interested in snakes and Bollywood anymore. They're saying, how did you digitize this? How did you use technology to do it? Healthcare services have become accessible. How did you do that? So they see India, they see India as an aspirational space, and we have not capitalized on that as aspiration as yet in the education space. I think we should. Sooner or later, Indian education should go global. We should be able to compete with the US and Australia and England on equal terms. And I'm certain that, even Indian knowledge systems that are being talked about so much. Now, India never believed in knowledge systems. India believed in knowing. Knowledge system is stuck in the past. So Indian systems have always had the dynamism of what you call Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwar syndrome. You create, you maintain, you also destroy. The destruction part is as important. In a systemic way, you must destroy those mindsets in India that doesn't serve you. Destroy technological bases that are archaic. Destroy institutional structures that do not serve, don't give access. So this act of destruction doesn't come very easily.
You said that about globalizing Indian thought, not globalizing Indian religion. That's a bold statement in the current context. Could you elaborate? Because most people misunderstand globalizing Indian thought is equivalent to globalizing Indian religion.
Well, that is their understanding. I can't do much about it. What I can say is that if you look at what globalization was, what it is, and what it is likely to be. A lot of people talk about globalization. It was thought that globalization is an extension of the economic might. So you must be able to trade freely. So trade routes would open up, and a product here would go to product there. Google will dominate internet connectivity all over the world. Today you realize that that kind of globalization has ended with COVID. Google has no presence in China. It cannot see zero presence in China. We have 99.99% presence here. So China has evolved its own mechanism. India will evolve its own mechanism. Rupee is now challenging the dollar. And the point I'm trying to make is this whole thing called economic globalization has reached its limit because people have suffered as a result of this. The inequity between rich and poor has only grown. Africa has been destroyed completely. It has done some good things. It has made democracies prosper. It has 6 times the income of Vietnam, Bangladesh, India, 6 times it has grown. It has made people economically prosperous, but it has come at a cost. So the next phase of globalization will be about values. You see, if there is a tough war between 2 countries, the alignment will be not based on geography or economic power, but based on ideologies, values. And so values will become the next theme for globalization. So if you have to have a bunch of people coming together, they have to have a shared value. Today Cyprus is part of European Union, but it has got relationship with Russia. Cyprus is an outcast in the European Union. They don't want Cyprus. Why? Not because they are not part of the economic, but because ideologically they are different. Are you with me? Yes. Hong Kong is part of China, but Hong Kong connects more than China. So it's about values. It is not about economy or geography. See, it's the next phase of globalization. So I said, why would globalization of thought be important? Because India has some of the deepest and the most respected democratic values of the world. This is truly a deep democracy, although we may not see it on the surface. Truly a deep democracy, and we see this in the way people are. Commonly, people are ethical by and large. If you see the lowest strata of Indian society, it is not as bad as the highest. I can give you an example. I'm in Calcutta and I am trying to get to a bus that goes to IIM campus. And I missed the bus, and the bus is running away in front of me, so I catch hold of an auto guy. I said, can you help me catch the bus? He says, from here to the next bus stop, the fare is 5 rupees, 3 rupees. Will you be able to give me that money? I said, yes, I'll give you that money. So he runs behind the bus, we get into the bus, and I give him a 5 rupee note in those days. And he's supposed to return 2 rupees to me. I assumed that, why would I do it 2 rupees? I give away 5, and I got into the bus. He's chasing the bus until he can return the $2. I wouldn't see this in the highest echelons of Indian society. This is a very deeply democratic society. At multiple levels, you will see the democracy at work. That's why politicians, despite all their might, are still scared of the so-called illiterate population, because they're scared of right thinking. They're scared of a deeply held set of values that drives an Indian. Despite so much misery, so much poverty, our ethical standards are much better compared to many parts of the world. You may or may not trust it. India is synonymous with corruption, but I think most parts of India are incorruptible, despite so much of. I'll give you another example. I was doing a leadership program with judges of high courts. And as part of my program, I tell each of them to tell a story that has changed their lives. So one of the judges said, I was in Rishikesh and I was trying to take a dip in the Ganges. And near the Lakshmanjula bridge, I was waiting and reflecting on the water, river flowing by. The little kid comes with some golis. Golis are little food for fish, made of wheat grains. And so he says, I'll take a goli. 1 rupiya mein 5 milega, aap le lijiye. Take 5 for 1 rupee. And you are not supposed to fish in this place because the fish is supposed to be protected. So the judge says, nahi chahiye. I want to be here, leave me alone. So the kid starts pestering. No, take it, please. Just 1 rupee. So he said, I turned around and I thought it was difficult to get rid of him. So I took out a little currency note, 1 note, whatever, and I gave it to him and I said, don't disturb me anymore. Don't disturb me anymore because I've done with. So he turned around and he returned the money. He said, free में मैं नहीं लेता पैसा. You know, and the judge said, I am a judge. I am supposed to know the motives of people. And I couldn't read the mind of this little kid. That he has a self-respect, his dignity, that is due to him that I have not given him. And so, you see, in pockets of India, you'll get a sense of what keeps the Indian alive and vibrant and resilient on the face of so much adversity. People talk of Indian corruption. Yeah, there is corruption, there's no question of denying it. But if you look at the sanity of people here, in spite of all of that, the resilience to be able to move on in spite of that. So I was asking in Boston, my first visit to Harvard, say, if you unleash the population of Calcutta, the city of Boston and Cambridge, like Howrah and Calcutta, can you imagine what the ethical standards of Boston, Cambridge would be? They said, we can't imagine. And then I asked a question. This is my question to an all-American audience. I said, look, what does half-boiled egg mean to you? He said, an egg boiled for half the time. I said, no, it means a fully boiled egg, cut in two halves with a string, cotton thread by a mother who divides the egg into two equal halves so that two brothers can have equal without fighting with each other. Because for us, egg was half an egg. That was the idea of an egg, shared egg. America doesn't understand what that is. You know, it's always two eggs. So for them to reconcile to the fact that there's a shared value, there's this ability to make do with little minimal resource, all this idea called jugaad and all of that comes out of very deeply held value. That says that there is help everywhere. If you just have to relate to people in the right way, you will get help and you can survive. No, this is fine. So I don't want to represent the CNN version of India. Nor do I want to tell you globalization is about a handful of people deciding what it is. For me, it is fundamentally about values, and India has held on to them for ages. So my pride about Kerala is that people here are literate. They're also educated. But why is that not education translating in a simple thing like clearing garbage? What is the challenge here? The challenge is that fundamentally the challenge is the value you put on these kind of behaviors. So if education is still a very important issue in the hearts and minds of people here. But an institution such as ours, if they could come to Kochi, we have impacted the world here. We charge a significant amount of money for, but we also provide highest quality at a reasonably affordable price, which changes the way people's careers are perceived. And so I thought that it was fine, but we made the most of what was available, and we still think that we can do a good job of it. Even 30,000 square feet is good enough. But we were given 5 acres of land. We had to build a full-fledged campus here. But it went to some other entity, I do not know. There must be an obvious reason for it, I don't want to go into it. Yeah.
You talked about basic healthcare, but when it comes to higher education, Kerala is far behind as being. Is that the feeling? What is your perspective?
I don't agree. See, quality of higher education, quality of teaching, quality of learning, you can't say Kerala is far behind because you have not seen other states. What Kerala lacks is the outlet for higher education to be in the employability kind of space. That's number one, because there are too few jobs here. And so that's one. Two, the kind of innovation that needs to happen in higher education will happen when there is industry, when there is exposure to larger ecology. So that kind of exposure, people here are extremely talented. I can tell you the quality of research that is happening in CUSAT and some other universities, high quality, but I'm not sure the quality of administration, quality of faculty in Kerala universities, top notch. There's no doubt in my mind. Quality of academic administration, I'm not very sure. The appointment process of vice chancellors, I'm not sure. The politicization of the education space, I'm not sure if that's the right thing to do. So a decision that is politically sound but academically unsound will cost the institution a lot, because leaders determine how institutional processes, talent is going to be channeled. So I have absolutely no doubt about Kerala's. It is not among the lowest. It is still one of the brightest spots. Education in Kerala is still respected. You see schools of Kerala, at least in the primary K-12 level, people say that this quality of Kerala education is by far better than most schools. I was talking to 1,000 principals of Sahodaya school just the other day, 1 week back in Ernakulam. The discipline with which they come and the receptivity to new knowledge. There's hunger, there's aspiration. But you need academic leadership. That is missing. You can point out a lot of star teachers here who are publishing. And so what has happened is, if institutions don't grow and then don't expand as in tandem with age, people ossify within the institution space. So talent is there, but the talent is not. For instance, in IIM, I decided I fought with the board and sent all my faculty to Harvard. It cost in those times 5 lakhs per faculty. So my board said, how can, if they don't come back, it will be a loss to institute. I said, not loss to India. Because this is something, they will come back. And they came back, none of them left us. Because, so what was wrong in sending? Now I can tell you 70% of my faculty who I recruited have gone to Harvard. And when they come back, they're different people. So once you want to teach a person how to appreciate the beauty of Taj Mahal, you must send him or her to see the Taj Mahal. And so then you can't see here, look at Taj Mahal, look at a picture. You can't. So there has to be investment in academic leadership. One of my colleagues who is leading the digital university here, the academic leadership has to be honed at a different level. And you must not put a person who is just politically affiliated as leader of academic institution. That demoralizes the entire institution space. The education has to rise above political other considerations. Unfortunately, we are far away from that here. Look at West Bengal. Still an educational leader. But see what has happened to its institutions. Look at the quality of its intellectual power and look at the quality of its institutions. And then you see institutions when they are not led with excellence at the helm. The talent that is there. A bunch of lions led by a ship will behave like sheep. You can't blame the lions for being sheep. You see, since childhood, I did not go to Jerusalem or I did not go to Mecca. I didn't have a chance. I only went to Krishna temples. I only went to places where people would visit. All of a sudden, I asked a question as a management professor as to why so many people flock to these places. And I was told by Karl Marx, and I used to read Karl Marx with equal, in Bengal you can't but not read Karl Marx. He said, religion is the opium of the masses. I said, fair enough. But opium has some medical and therapeutic value. It is used for medicine. So it has both a delusional value, it has also got a therapeutic value. I picked the therapeutic, not the delusional aspect of religion. Religion is the most powerful organization of the world. I am a student of organization. I am asking a simple question. Why India is divided by the only 3 names? Krishna, Shiva and Rama. A combination of these is the name of everybody. I did my research before writing this book on Arjun. I realized the number 1 name in India in 2012 for boys was Arjun. I said, if I write a book and every father whose son is Arjun wants to buy a copy, it would be a bestseller. I sold, that was my bestseller. For me, the approach to religion has never been the other side, other dimension of the opium. It has been this dimension that why would people flock together? Days after days they'll go to Sabrimala. What would keep them? It is the human need to look at the infinite capacity within himself or herself that gives birth to religion. we are not finite. We are finite only in the way we define ourselves. For the lack of a word, you give a name to the infinite. Doesn't matter whether Einstein is giving a name to infinite. He created a theory. I'm not Einstein, so I give a name to infinite. Within the finite, I want to stretch myself beyond anybody's imagination. So the ability to exercise my imagination, I have these icons. So I take Arjuna, not just, I wrote, I was talking to this guy who wrote Ikigai. He sold 3.5 million copies. I said, he just made one word popular in the world, Ikigai. Do you know that there's something like Ekagrata in India, which is the birth of, from Mount Everest to Mount Fuji, these ideas traveled to Japan. Japan utilized Indian religion to a great advantage. They took Karma Yoga and converted this into real action. Micro-excellence. What you call Japanese micro-excellence largely comes from a spiritual value, Confucian, Buddhist values. And so, religion has been the basis of formidable organizational. My job is to unlock the power that brings people together. So I may write a book not on Krishna, I may write a book on anything, but the fact is that I chose these icons because they are a quick draw. So in order to sell something, you have to, use a mechanism through which you attract people. So I attract people. But if you ask me whether I am a religious person in the sense that most people are, I am not a preaching Hindu, I am a practicing Hindu. And a practicing Hindu does not know what it is. A practicing Hindu looks at another person that's another version of himself or herself. There's dignity in human life. He reveres life. There's reverence for life. That's what makes me Hindu. And everything that is associated with reverence for life is my domain. And religion has never been the opium of the kind Marx talked about. It has been an opportunity for me to study organizations, to learn from masters. This has been a real worthwhile.